I'm going to demonstrate how to use the sandbox tools. Sandbox tools are great for creating things like terrain and also customized curved surfaces. The way you access them is by going into the extension warehouse and then downloading the sandbox tools application, the extension to SketchUp. So this is what it would look like when you open it up. I've already downloaded it so I can locate it within the tools bar, drop down menu into sandbox, and it's also within the draw tab up at the top, and you'll see that there are the options to create something in the sandbox from contours and from scratch. So the first thing I'm going to demonstrate is how to create some terrain or even a curved custom shape from contours. So the way I'm going to do this is by switching into a side view from the camera. I'm going to choose left. I'm going to go ahead and take a 2-point arc and draw it so it is in a vertical position, like so. Then I'm going to highlight it, hold down Option to make a copy, move it a certain distance away, and then I'm going to say divide by 2 to create another curved line in between those two. In order to demonstrate making terrain from contours, I'm then going to raise this line up slightly along the vertical axis, and I'm going to raise this curved line up even higher, just a slight bit, like that. Alright, so the best way to think of this is as support beams for some type of fabric to be laid over it, and that's the way I like to understand this. So I'm going to highlight all 3 of these lines right now, the poles if you will. Then I'm going to select sandbox, draw sandbox, and then from contours, and you'll see that there's a mesh laid in between those lines to create some type of a slide-like structure. So you can create a variety of arrangements with lines and then select create terrain from contours. I'm going to demonstrate how to create terrain through the sandbox tool from scratch. So select draw sandbox tool from scratch. Down in the bottom right you'll see that there's a number indicating grid spacing. I'm going to set mine to 500 right now by typing in 500 and then enter. And what that is when I lay down my grid, you'll see that I click once on the origin and then click outwards. I'm dragging up. You'll see that what I'm laying down is a flat surface with a grid arrangement on it. This is all grouped together, so for the next step, which is to create some type of undulating terrain, mountains, hills, valleys, I'm going to right click on the grid and say explode. So allow me to select individual lines within my grid pattern and also some of the surfaces. To begin creating some mountains, I'm going to go to Tools, Sandbox, and then select Smooth. You'll see that there's a little red circle that appears. Now the radius of that circle, if you look in the bottom right, is now 300. I'm going to make it slightly larger to 600 by typing in 600 and then enter. Notice how the circle gets bigger, and I probably need it to be even bigger than that, so I'm going to type in 800 and then enter. Alright, so once I'm happy with the size of my circle, I can click once on the grid, press and start dragging up. So I'm just going to work around my grid in no particular order, just dragging up mountains. Sometimes I'm going to increase the radius of my circle, to create a bigger portion to be dragged up, always orbiting into a position where it makes it obvious to the SketchUp software what I'm trying to do. And I'm just going to create a giant mountain now. Smooth. Make this even bigger. Let's make this 1,550. I'm going to drag this up. Up, 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 like so. There are 2 more tools that I'm going to show you how to use, and these are the tools in the sandbox tab, stamp and drape. So I have a miniature house, and I'm going to first show you how to stamp it onto my terrain. So I've grouped the house. I'm going to take the move tool, move it onto my terrain, and then I'm going to raise it up slightly. Now for this house, it's not going to sit like this on top of a mountain. Really what it's going to need is some type of flat base for it to balance upon. So if it's going to sit this high up, I'm going to go now to Tools, Sandbox. I'm going to select Stamp. I've selected my house earlier, and then I'm going to say Stamp it to this terrain, And notice how there is a variable height for a platform for the house to sit on, and I'm going to adjust it right up to here. And that has allowed me to set my house onto my terrain, onto a miniature mountain. I'm going to demonstrate how the drape tool works now. So I'm going to take my two-dimensional road, I'm going to move it over my terrain, and then I'm going to raise it up slightly. What to do, select the road, move tool, move it upwards, like so. And then once it's hanging above my model, my terrain, I'm going to select Sandbox, Drape, and say drape it over this terrain. And you'll notice that when I delete the road, which was hovering above the terrain, there is an imprint of the drape pattern.